Okay, so let's start the stream. My webcam is actually upside down. Well, that should be easy to fix. Not sure if I probably have the webcam in different. Let's remove that vertically flipped here. So now it's fine. Okay, so I have one SNG running here, a few in registration, and one MTT. One MTT which I late registered a moment ago. We still have a bit over 20 big blinds, so somewhat playable stack depth anyway. I think we can probably give up that one. It's suited hand, but one of the weakest. One of the weakest overall. And went for 3-bet into SNG, but no action. And yeah, I used a bit smaller sizing overall. I mean, with deeper stacks, I don't want to go really much less than what I did here, but we can also go like a bit less than 3x more from position, especially without any antis in play. And we flop trips here, so no one bet, so we could also lead, but I mean that was actually really crappy. Really crappy. But the thing is that flop went checked, so suppose we can try to value bet here. And if they fold, I suppose folding isn't horrible. And both of them has the queen. Yeah, I didn't want to pump the river because of some decent possibility that they still have the. Suppose I could have gotten like a bit bigger, like 180, but yeah, I don't want to scare the queen X's away. So maybe they would be calling anyway. It's relatively dry flop board, and I am betting against two players. So, like if I go to pot size or something like that, I should be getting the top pairs to fold decently often. And a nice c-bet hand here, really dry flop, and we have kind of maximum amount of backdoor stuff across, but yeah, deuce obviously isn't one of the greatest card. I will just check here and give up pretty much. So I went for 3-bet here on the outer. counter table. Both of them, this guy cold calls my 3-bet and the open raiser calls. It's pairs board, but also kind of drawy one, and we are against 2 people, so I think I prefer check back here. We have some possibility to improve. I kind of hate to, well, not hate, but I mean we won't get that many better hands to fold usually by betting single street. And we can now call here. We might have the best hand sometimes. And ace or king is going to also be out relatively often. But now if he bets, I'm just going to give up. But sometimes if he checks, we can still be winning. Well, he had hit the 7. That was unfortunate. That was unfortunate. Evaded flush out, but managed to hit the pair out. And the upper left against later position open raise. I might sometimes check raise, but against hijack or UTG, I just prefer to check call. Check call here, so we have some pretty solid hands to be check calling against multiple street barrels. And this looks really weird, but I mean I have top pair open-ended backdoor flush draw, so I'm not going to fold here. Oh well, and he wins. Ironic spot. Yeah, it would have been close. Like if he had made sizable bet on the top left, I would have folded against small one. I suppose I would have probably crying cold. Oh well, that was pretty interesting bet on the upper right table from the middle lane. But yeah, it's basically the best hand I can have that is behind will lane hand. So. So that was pretty weird spot. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, whatever, use the YouTube chat. So we get free flop and flush draw. Once they both check, I definitely try to semi-bluff here. Problem is that we don't have that many AXs, so it's not going to work that often. And now we actually get some showdown value, so... And yeah, I think I just check fold here. We can sometimes win against some queen high or whatever. That was extremely passive play from the middle lane. tiny bit better kicker. Wow. People really love to slow play, it seems. Yeah, I was just betting here we might get, like on the turn, we might get sometimes, or decently often, like some king high, maybe some a high to fold. And we don't allow Willen to try to bluff on the river if we check again, so there could have been also option to just check and try to get to showdown with the queen high. With the queen high and go from here. So on the MTT we got the add-on, and I'm not sure if there was also some sort of rebuy possibility, I suppose, because there was two buy-in things going on. That's one of the points in these sort of games that offer this possibility that you can add on. So I basically late registered in the more or less last minute possibility. So we got into the add-on period pretty much. I don't know if we played really any hands. I think there was some limped bot or something, but now anyway we have very good stack depth anyway at this point. So one of the advantages is that by this type of strategy we don't need to waste the time on the early game. In a way, it's sort of can be seen sort of waste that you invest time and I mean the point is that even if you make like on the early game when the blinds are low, even if you make like let's say 20-30 big blind per 100 hand win rate, it's not going to be that big of a deal in bigger picture because after the blind levels go up a few times, the profit we have made, like maybe we have, even if we have like doubled our stack, it's still not going to be enormous advantage on later part. So that's why late registration can be quite effective, especially in this sort of game, that we can still get into big stack. And trying to check raise on the bottom left. And Willen does comply with our wishes. So if the Willen call here, we would have had quite nice shoving stack for the turn. So we have like 60 big blind on the MTT, definitely stack depth that we have more than enough playability. Upper right is actually kind of close. I think without reads I prefer calling little bit. There is some possibility to make small 3-bets and fold to shove, but it's also kind of awkward stack depth for it, I would say. Against his 4x sizing. And on the outer table, I open raised with lane 3 bet pre-flop, definitely defending this sort of hand, and will then check the flop. So I went for half pot bet and now shoving the river a bit below pot size. Of course not the greatest turn card, but we are going to be ahead extremely often. And against smaller bet size I could call here with the ace-7, but it goes pot size, so just folding my backdoor not flush draw. Well, a lot of premium hands, pocket jacks in the outer table. I have pocket aces and suited connector here. Well, flop is not the greatest one, but well, when the pre-flop aggressor checks, we have the best hand relatively often. That was crappy river. If he checks, well, I'm just going to check behind. We have still top pair decently plausible that we have the best hand. And MTT, I think I go for no, well, bet. We have decently often the best hand overall. And yeah, here we should be betting. Not sure, well, maybe my sizing went a little too big overall. Had the big wick to not sit out. And ace-10 upper left definitely going to play, and I suppose we can call or shove. I think it's fine either way. Well, ace was pretty crappy, but I'm just going to check fold. Yeah. I mean, if he had flush draw or something, it's more likely that he would have bet the turn. I suppose betting the river would have some sense in a way that we could try to get some better pairs to fold by repping the AX ourselves. Well, top left, it's kind of a spot where I think when we have the ace-10, I prefer betting here still. We have to call if he shoves, and that's kind of awkward in a way that he definitely can have 7x. There is still weaker 10x. There is a lot of draws he could have. Oh well. King 3. Yep. Oh, well. Yeah, I checked on the turn on the MTT because I didn't want to. I can't really go for 3 barrels unless I improve and don't want to face any check raise on the turn. Well, that was unfortunate on the upper left table. Well, if the villain calls king 3, then we at least don't have to worry about was our turn value bet good or not. Once again, these guys go for limp gold traps. Let's 3-bet here. Against the button open raise, so we often have decent amount of fold equity. And this is decent flop, we have really dry flop, and we actually have gutsshot plus backdoor flush draw. Best outcome that will then just fold happens, so I don't mind too much. And in here, open raise, check the flop, and on the turn we actually hit the rare miracle card. And I won't be too worried about 9-10, because that should be betting the turn itself often. So this is going to be definitely a spot to bet still. Oh, well, that was lucky turn. Only out we had pretty much. Let's go for check back. It's dry flop, so it wouldn't be bad to see, but small, deny some equity. But and on the bottom left we have the bottom pair and backdoor flush draw. But now we don't improve in any way, and will then continue with bigger sizing. So clear fold at that point. We have a huge amount of better holdings to continue. So that's one thing. Like, yeah, of course. Here we still can be ahead. Like, he can easily have some straight draws, though that's not huge amount of his cutoff range. Probably he might just barrel the king as scare card, but I mean, if we continue with bottom pair, no draw, we really don't fold anything pretty much. So. You always want to think about your range and what sort of hands you want to continue, what sort of chances you have to improve, and things like that. It's 5 suited, I will just open shove here, definitely plus EV. I'm running the bigger ace, but this time we actually hold. I will go for c-bet on the bottom left. It's not actually a bad spot to be double barreling, because we can hit gut shots or open straight draws decently often. Of course, he can have AX here or Jack X, and both of those won't fold, but he can also have some pocket pairs that probably fold good amount of time. And we can basically set mine here on the bottom left. So this is actually flop that we can definitely consider to check call. Or we kind of have to check call, I suppose. Of course, the issue is that there are very few good turn cards, but that is actually the best possible one. Because our flush draw obviously isn't the greatest one, but that card we can definitely shove for value and hope that we are not screwed. Jesus. Yeah, it wasn't the best for this time. Oh well. One of these sessions, it seems, from the short session so far. Jesus. One of the few hands that have us, or well, only hand that has us totally crushed pretty much. I mean, if he had the flush draw, at least we would have the 10 outs at that point, but now we only had one out. Only had one out. And it's kind of nasty that pretty much any other, like even if he hit the flush and if he like bombs it with close to pot size bet, we can definitely just fold. So it's kind of nasty outcome. Well, here on the upper right, small blind very rarely has the calling hand, so it's mainly this button guy that might be trapping sometimes, but we are 6 big blind deep, so that's not really concern. Mr. Limper. Well, in the upper left we have practical nuts. It's kind of nice sizing in this spot, especially because if there will lane call, we can shove most of the turns with less than pot size bet, and we also allow him to. I suppose I could raise this 9 queen, because I doubt that this button guy is really going to be 3-bet shoving that often, so. Flush draw and a high. Just going to check call here. Doesn't make too much sense to be leading myself. And now we definitely can be. We have the best hand practically always. Or at least really often. But who knows, these guys have been slow playing all around. Let's just call. We have a really cheap draw. mean, we can maybe check raise, but we lead ourselves in kind of a weird spot. And this is a decent spot to bluff, in my opinion. Not the greatest, but we can definitely have 7x, we can have some AXs. And he doesn't fold. And we didn't really block too much of the like flush draw, passive flush draws from the middle lane and so on. And here we only have like 6 big blind, so I think even this crappier King X is decent to shove. But unfortunately not winning that one. Well, I think I will just shove here. It's not the safest top 2 pair spot ever, but I mean, we can still definitely get especially some fizzy player to stack off a lot of weaker hands. Oh well. Nothing goes my way, it seems. And now I'm just having the call spot for split pot. Yeah. If there was like a blank card without the ace, I would have at least a chance to win against the bluffs. And have to call on the upper right if the button is shoved. It's kind of close on the bottom left that. But yeah, it's limped pot, so he might not even have that many AX hands, I suppose. But my hand is going to be good very often here. Not this time, it seems. Oh, well, checking a7 is again a pretty passive line from the middle lane on the turn. On the MTT, there might be a tiny bit of value to hit the river, but I think I just take the safe option and check. And of course he shoves now. Not the previous hand when I had the trap hand. And I have to call the ace 10. I think even in the Nash it's probably... Well, I think in the Nash it's actually quite close to the bottom of my range, but people are often going to shove too much in this sort of situation. Like, for example, that hand should definitely not be shoving hand as clear middle stack when there is really short stack on the play. But unfortunately, Willem got rewarded for it. Yep. I think I have to call here. I'm not that much ahead of this guy, and Len is probably shoving pretty much any two. Just checking king high. Of course we can deny some equity, but I mean basically no better hand is going to be folding, so... That's the downside of checking, that sometimes 6 out does hit. Though the percent-wise it's not that high, but does happen. We just limp shove, and if he has better, then so be it. And he has. I think foreign shooter should be even in the Nash range. Yeah, it's around 10 big blind. And king jack obviously calling. Oh well. Not much you can do when the will lane runs like that. You are just destined to lose. I think it's quite close on the upper right. Basically, small blind shouldn't be that often hitting that board, so I will actually go for second barrel here. We might get some, at least single pair hands to fold, but doesn't happen, so no, he had king 5. I mean, the thing is, when there is, I think there wasn't, oh well, there was actually flush draw. I mean, flush draw would make more sense as bluff on the turn, but I mean, if you don't use the flush, then next best hand is one that doesn't really have basically no showdown value, or for extremely little of it. So you can't can't be winning that often by checking. And yeah, I think I have to call with the king 8, I mean pocket 8 on the MTT. And now we can hope that the villain would check. But he doesn't. These are kind of ugly spots because we have some equity against his range anyway. So one option is to call here and give up if he triple barrels, but I don't know. Well, I think folding is decent as well. One of the issues is that even if we hit the big time flush, like are we going to bluff cats with it if we hit the flush on the river and we'll lane triple barrel? So it's not the greatest spot, even if we do improve. And usually when the flush draw completes on the turn, people are not going to bet that many weaker hands overall. And definitely going to barrel on the top left. Well, I think this is one of the most reasonable bluffs we have. And full house. But no action. That guy didn't even consider folding. And that was one optimistic call. I mean, I still did shove quite big stack. So I had like 17 big blind. So definitely not plus EV call. Well, let's try to see bet on the upper right. It's as dry as flop can pretty much be, and on the bottom top left I will just check fold. Check fold that one. Basically nothing from my hand. Of course my range is going to have good amount of strong hands, but Len will also have a decent amount of AX and Queen X and so on. And this is just salvo situation on the bottom right, and we are actually ahead. And we can limp steal, big blind sitting out, so on the bottom left we could have bet the flop with our backdoor flush draw, but we have maybe, well, he actually min raised, so we don't actually have showdown value, but I mean it's quite crappy hand to start bluffing because we only have backdoor flush draw that isn't even for the nuts, so let's go for min bet bluff on the upper right. I would usually min bet any 6x as well here for value. Sometimes have like 7x also. Upper left we can go for small c bet. We don't have club, only one overcard. Overcard 9x. So it's not that big of a disaster if the villain happens to check raise or something like that. And queen 9 we can go for check raise on the turn if the villain had c bet. I think at this point we have the best hand really often. Of course we are basically trying to get value from like 9AX or some sort of 7x type of hand or 8x. Well, this is one crappy flop, especially against the big blind. He can definitely have stuff on tier, and we don't have anything at all. So just one of those give up times. And this guy bets again. I think we are kind of deep stacked, but let's go for call. If we were a bit more shallow, I would probably have gone for the limp shove, but I mean it's nice to have some of the AXs in the limp calling range, but this is the issue that we are extremely often in this sort of scenario with these hands. Just a high, not really chances to improve. And went for lead with the gutshot. Calling with pocket threes. So horrible. So horrible. Well, not from my perspective, obviously, but from the villain side. It's just absurd call, especially as I think he was. Well, I'm not sure was he actually even. We have antis on the MTT here, so we can just limp, but I mean shoving is always plus EV as well. Of course, when we do hit, when we do get called, I mean, we are usually going to be screwed, but this time we are actually ahead somehow. Well, I don't really need to go big on the bottom left, because I think if the villain has the king X, he's quite often going to raise meat here. There would be some argument to even just check and give him the possibility to be bluffing still something. The main issue is that if he happens to have like the AX, he's likely going to be just checking, so yeah, I think I just call here. We want to keep some of the AXs in our, I mean Queen X's in our calling range. Yep. One of these again. Oh well. It's tough to fold those. Maybe I should be folding. Well, this time I luck boxed. We have gutshot and 2 overcards, so let's peel it. And I'm going to shove here against the small blinds 3-bet. And run into nuts, unfortunately. Unfortunately. I don't think there is too much different possibilities. Hand isn't that good to be calling, and we are cutoff versus a small blind situation, so you can definitely expect some like 3-bets. Well, we still have some possibilities. It's kind of close with the pocket fours on the top left. We are bit over 20 big blind deep. I mean, you can go for c-bet. It's just kind of awkward that if you face the check raise. Because it's quite often the case that villain has like, well, this time it wasn't the case, and he turns that crap, but I mean, it should be unlikely that he has straight draws here, so if he check raise or check shoves the flop, there is basically good amount of jack X hands and some flush draws usually. Well, in the MTT, probably stacking off tier if chances for that. And King 8 is actually kind of close. You can argue about call or fold, I think. Both are possibilities. And it's going to be actually against the same villain. Well, not the greatest situation, but I think I still have to go with the nines here. Yeah, basically in chip EV situation, one of the smallest stack as well. And it's again pocket kings. That's what I love of the MTTs. Combo draw on the bottom left. And 9-10 suited, I will 3-bet, so re-steal here. Quite a setup on the bottom left, but luckily we win. And we have, basically with Ledge who don't have, or he should really rarely have better jack X's like ace queen. I mean AX's, not jack X's, so I think I go for value from here. Of course he can have sometimes two pairs, but there are busted draws. He can definitely call weaker AX, maybe sometimes even jack X. I think we can also open the king 8, it's totally fine, but we have to call against the button at least, if he shoves. And I could have limped on the bottom left to not get into 3-bet situation, but once he goes for 3x 3-bet, we definitely want to continue with that hand, I would say. I don't know about the bottom left spot. If he bets here, he has so often some value hand. I mean, if he has AX or pocket pair, he should be checking back it mainly. So on the bottom top left, we could also lead that one, but I think villain will value bet the AX anyway most of the time, so we get to check shove at that point. We actually won with ace 5. That's quite a miracle without hitting anything. That's quite something. Seems like the connection between my computer and the Unibet server is once again not working that greatly. like there is some delay a lot of the time. And yeah, I have to call here. Oh well. Setups. Well, sometimes you are on the better side of them as well. Yeah, quite unfortunate spot on the top left that we get situation like that against the second stack step leader. But I mean, 3-bet folding would be too tight. So I'm not like absolutely thrilled about the call situation against the 4-bet either, but I mean, we can of course just 3-bet shove as well, but the point is that at that point he's just going to call, fold. Like, he's going to call ace-king anyway if he has it, or if he has like good pocket pair or something like that. So it's not going to remove those situations that when we 3-bet small and call against the big hand like that. Of course it can remove some of situations, like if we 3-bet small, he can definitely shove some small to medium pocket pairs that he might be folding against the shove, and that's actually a good thing, because we don't really want to be flipping in that sort of situations. But at the same time, when we 3-bet small, he might also shove, for example, if he has some sort of smaller AX, for example. Some suited aces are quite reasonable to be 4-bet shoved sometimes. And like maybe like king queen might shove sometimes and stuff like that. So that he can also call, which in the long run will be okay for us. I think shoving here is fine, especially when the button is also really short stack, so we are only being covered by 2 players. And have to fold against button and small blind on the top left, but we can definitely call against the 3 big blind stack. Doesn't look too good, but somehow we hit and evade clubs as well. On the upper right, I try to steal here, use the king blocker and my stack advantage. And have to fold against that open shove. And king jack will be mandatory. We can actually make the non-all-in play. Well, run into not here. And I think I just go for raise against that dog bet. course, there are good signs in just calling as well. And Jack, suited Jack, definitely shoving hand. Hoping for the fold. Well, that's what you hope most of the time. And nuts on the top left. Hopefully some action. And he has the ace, but we managed to evade that one. Queen 7. I'll actually go for small ball option. We can shove it as well, but I think it's actually pretty much the absolute bottom of our range that we should be or could be shoving. So because of that, I don't mind the limping either. And queen. I will just shove here. We can also check. That's fine also. But I mean, when we have the king queen, it's less likely that villain is trapping here. And even if he is trapping, we might sometimes be flipping against some pocket jacks or tens or maybe some ace jack or something. Of course, the benefit of just checking behind is that you can keep villain range wider, and at those times we actually hit the board. We are really often going to be good. That was unlucky on the top right for this pocket kings guy. It was kind of ironic ending for that MTT that we got two pocket nines quite close to each other and both times against the kings. I think both of those situations were quite sort of standard. I mean, both situations are where 3-betting guy was 3-betting against cutoff from small blind. He can definitely have some like 3-bets, so we can't really deny possibility for, well, I suppose on the second case having fold equity was extremely unlikely overall, but still we were in the absolute chip EV situation, so I think we can and should still be stacking off with the nines here. Not that great hand on the upper right, but great stack situation to be barreling, and well, this looks pretty nice. Open raised, flop the set, and villain shoves, and he actually doesn't have anything else than backdoor. backdoor draws, and luckily he didn't complete those. And in the next hand, pocket jacks in that spot. Well, I think I will give up with you. Yeah, he might be bluffing, but there was also this third guy, so it tends to decrease the times that he is bluffing, and he had the top pair. And just going to check raise with our straight here. And actually both villains calling, so let's big bet big on the turn when we still have the best hand next to always. And then ship the river for value. So the flop went check check, we turn open ender, so let's go for the late C bet, or was it actually big blind that we defended? I suppose it was. Well, either way it's fine. Either way it was totally fine. Fine bet. And double barreled here with my gutshots and queen, but he calls twice, so time to give up. Luckily, or I don't know, if there was club, I would have probably shoved the river, but it's always question mark if they are capable of folding any AX. You never know without seeing some sort of evidence of their play from before or something. Well, now we actually got pocket aces here, 3-bet calling chance. Well, that was huge setup. Let's hope that we hold. I think I just raise here and stack off if he shoves. It should be rare that he goes for shove because we have so many value combos here, and he calls and we actually hit the straight. I suppose, I mean, on the top right we can argue about check raising the turn, because I will have some 2 pairs straight type of hand here, but the main reason why I don't actually that often make that play here is that, well, again, if the villain has the AX, he's not going to be usually folding that pretty much ever, so. But it's definitely a possibility that you can do with that sort of combo draw. And not the greatest spot, because we don't really have AX, but I think I will, well, suppose against min bet we could go either way. Let's just take the cheap draw possibility, because as I said, we have difficulties to represent AXs. and decided to bluff catch here. Oh, he had 10 jack as well. We were free rolling for the I would actually more often check that jack 10, but I don't think shoving is bad either necessarily. So 500 big blind. That's pretty big one. And I'm just going to 3-bet shove with the queen 10. We are 9 big blind deep, so and didn't improve on the bottom left. As default, I tend to shove these because people often limp fold really big portion of time. And one of the benefits of that sort of hand is that even if the villain does limp call, we are quite often going to be. And we hit the nut flush. I see bet flop villain call, I check turn, and now obviously calling, and villain had 8th high. So I suppose that went pretty nicely. And with the stack depth we have, I will just go for the check shove here. And aces. Well, we still had decent amount of outs, but no luck. Well, decent amount, 5 outs. 5 outs. And we lane calls twice. Well, this is again best combo for bluffing, so I will fire the 3rd barrel as well. If he has the queen, he's not folding, but and he had, unfortunately. And on the outer table, villain hitting gutshot against my 2 pairs. Well, I did slow play the turn, so and yeah, I don't really expect that bluff on the bottom left to go through that often, but it will sometimes, and it's not the point really. I mean, we have huge amount of value hands overall. I mean, we have a lot of queen x's, we have some pocket like king's aces, some trips, and so on. So we are going to make a lot of profit when villain calls his queen x against those. I'm not sure about that, should I call or not, but $600 big blinds, that's pretty rare to get into that sort of blind level. And sort of interesting spot here on the bottom left, but we'll lane fires third barrel here, so. And I mean, it was monotone board. I can definitely have the king x, so I'm just folding here. And also, like, if he had 5-6 type of hands, that would make decent amount of sense for him to barrel, flop and turn. Even that completed, so I think it's totally fine to give up at that point. I'm not sure about top left. There is some merit in betting, I suppose. A sort of blocker against the possibility that he's bluffing us, because there is like fourth diamond, for example, on the river might induce Willen to bluff decently often and so on. And we can't really be calling. Well, let's go for 3-bet here. And king 10 we have to shove on the bottom right. Spade, nice. Well, king and well, 10 wasn't actually out anymore. King was. One sort of, well, in a way, nice thing about these games is also that you have sometimes this like 30 big blind. I'm going to 3-bet here and stack off if he shoves. King Queen is quite decent hand for that. I mean, if he calls, we are still going to dominate quite a lot of hands that he might be calling, and we have good postal playability. So even if the case that he shoves is not great, we are actually 3-betting huge amount of time. Overall, 6-7 is pretty much the bottom I would go for in that spot. And we already have a €10 game into registration, so let's go for there is 3 limps, and I only have 20 big blinds, so this is actually a pretty nice spot to be shoving that 20 big blind. We have pretty great risk reward overall. I suppose he's kind of saying that he has to jack mainly, or unless he happens to have some total weirdo hand here. Well, which he has 5 jack against open raise. Oh well. Oh well. Not really hand you should be expecting to see. It's always possibility with these guys. And club ain't the greatest card, but it's definitely going to be value sub spot still. Well, I probably should have called against the second min bet, but whatever. And this is one of those spots that I often tend to barrel here, because we have a lot of AXs, we have some flushes, we have the gutshoot still, so we can get nice pressure against the 2x, 7x type of hand here. I suppose once he calls second time, we can fold without having diamond ourselves. And I don't really like to call with those idiot end straight draws. And we'll be stacking off 20 big blind deep tier with the ace 8. And we evade. We'll lane cut the flush draw on the turn as well. So that went pretty nicely in the end. And yeah, easy fold ace 9 on the top left. Those are really hands you don't want to be calling against the 3-bets unless the 3-bet is extremely small sized or something. Not good post playability and easily dominated, so that's pretty much it. I could have actually semi-bluff on the top left, but I don't mind to just check fold either. That's actually something that I should probably try to study about. What sort of hands we would usually want to use as limp 3-bet, like on the upper left when we are deeper stacked. Because it's something that I really rarely do. So I think that sometimes they have recommended those type of suited aces, though I suppose it probably depends on the actual stack depth quite a bit also. And awesome looking spot, 3x open raise call, and we get the pocket kings. And both calls. Do we evade? Unfortunately not. Pocket nines one. Unfortunate. interesting line on the bottom left, like 7 shouldn't be really improving him. Of course, like x9 completed, but would he check x9 either? Of course, some pocket 7s is totally reasonable. At least maybe some top pairs. Okay. Well, that's quite rare that people slow play that sort of hand, but yeah, I suppose it's reasonable with how dry the flop was. No plus draw. No flush draw either. So yeah, probably theory-wise that at least should be fold most of the time. But who doesn't like the hero call? Well, pocket deuce is one crappy card. This guy seems to be quite active 3-betting, so I probably should tighten from the bottom at least. From the cutoff, I mean. Not the first time that he 3-betted me from the position, so probably best to just fold those crappy AX type of hands and such. And this is kind of perfect hand to be check calling. We have the top pair and club, so it's not going to be as bad. I always wonder why they don't shove in these situations. Like, doesn't they notice that I didn't go quite all in, or who knows? Well set up on the bottom left. And this is going to be kind of mandatory check call if he fires third barrel. Oh Jesus! Kind of hate those plays. Such absurd raise call. King 10 in the bubble. Oh well. Oh well. Like even in chip EV situation, that is one questionable play overall, and when you add that it's actually bubble situation, so it becomes pretty horrible. I just go for raise here. We have quite strong hand for blind versus blind, of course. Going to stack off raise folding wouldn't be exactly the greatest idea. I think I just call here. We can 3-bet, but it's just, well, I think it's probably fine either way, but Well, let's go for stop and go. Probably not folding, getting folds ever, but I think we can't really fold suited jack with a couple big blind behind. Well, one dry flop at least. If I could guess, I would say that this guy probably has some sort of 8x or flush draw or something like that. Quite often. Well, spade wasn't something I wanted to see. Well, I think we still want to be betting here, but let's hope that he doesn't check raise. Because that's one awkward spot. One awkward spot when that happens, but at the same time, do you want to give the free river for some gutshot or possible flush draw? That's the question. And often in those situations, like if I had ace queen with the queen of spade, I would actually quite often check back in a way that, or I would more happily check back because you have less to protect at that point. Of course, you might lose value against some like weaker AX type of hand by not looking for 3 barrels. Unfortunate river. I'm not going to hero it here. Yeah, I think I just shove here with the top pair and flush draw. I mean, yeah, we can call as well, but would be more happy to just call if there was like Jack 9, 5 type of board. So now there are going to be a bit more of those nasty turns even for our hand, like Queen or 10 or 8. That was unfortunate. Have to fold. And would have had the straight here. But yeah, 8-7 off, a bit too weak from the cutoff. Suited I would have definitely played it here, but I think I go for a small c-bet here. I our 7 is so vulnerable against many overcard hands, so kind of want to try to deny equity from those. That's pretty weird looking bet, but I think we have to call with the open-ended straight drop. It's kind of a better hand to call compared to some ace 10, I suppose, because ace 10 shouldn't be ahead of his value betting range anyway. So he basically should have quite often some two pair type of hand on the turn. I think we only have 1400, so less than pot size, and he goes for bet of 400, so I think we are going to be ahead extremely often here with our straight. I will go for value 7, hope that he goes exactly hand like that, two pair. And it was just backdoor flush draw completing. Of course he might sometimes have it, but stacks wise, of course, this would have been decent spot to raise his limp, but at the same time you want to ask that, do you want to raise every hand, because this sort of hand really doesn't make too much sense. It's not going to be value hand, and it's going to be quite easily dominated if he continues against the raise. So like if we make 3x raise against this limp or something. And usually I don't use these hands as 3-bet shove, but I think in this scenario, stack setup scenario, I'd tend to be more eager to attack. It depends on the villain, of course, as well. If you have a read that villain is on the tighter side, I think I just call king queen, because there is decent chance that if I 3-bet shove, there is 3-bet, I mean not 3-bet shove, but 3-bet, we might be facing 4-bet shoves more often, so don't really want to get into that scenario. And it's pretty decently nicely playing hand from even in 4-bet spots, so of course that one is pretty crappy flop. So I'm not going to continue. And basically on the upper left, my min raising range is going to be pretty heavily polarized here, so I have some strong hands that I'm trying to induce, and then some sort of those type of hands that aren't necessarily that great to be shoved. This is actually, I think we can go for any two shove, because we have such a huge chip lead situation going on, and they are really even stacks, so we can really try to get them into folding wars situation. Well, ace jack we have to stack off, obviously, against the button as well, if he shoves. And lucky outcome tier, and tier as well. Lucky in a way on the upper left that villain was dominated by a tiny bit weaker hand, and 8-6, it's up to 7 big blind. Yeah, let's go for it. I suppose limping would be good as well if we want to have limping range that's shallow. Folding is quite reasonable also with the 8-6. I don't really mind that one either. And would have obviously called with the king 10 if he shoves. That would be way too strong to be limp folded. And he goes for donk bet again. Or not donk bet, but lead. I just give up. If I had backdoor flush draw, I would probably try to float or raise him, but I think calling is only reasonable option here. I mean, raising, I think we are a bit too deep compared to pots that we would want to raise here and stack off with the weak middle pair. And we can fold at that point. Let's just go for open shove. It's kind of awkward hands to be raise folding or limp folding. And this Abel Dasgood has called me on here, so I think I just give up. I think he has Jack X quite often, or actually even better this time. Even better this time. Luckily, we didn't go for the bluff, which would have been quite reasonable, considering we had the blocker against the second nut flush draw. So would have been reasonable bluffs, but obviously. No call from 10x. Well, this is quite good. Quite good hand to rep 10x or flush. Let's try to go for thin value against ace x. And we actually hit the gut shot here, so there is busted draws 8-9. Oh, well, 8-9 is not but flush draw. Well, luckily 8-9 is not busted draw. As Will-Lane hacks we had that one. Well, still quite a lot of outs, but no hit. Never-ending heads-ups. Yeah, let's try to represent AX here. Mainly AX. And unfortunately we don't get the shove spot with the king 9. I think 7-8 would have been too weak to call. Considering the ICM in chip EV it would be cool, but... And yeah, I go for shove here with suited hand. Offsuit I would have folded. And seems like we got screwed. Unfortunately running into such big hand. And ace king we have to call it here. Even stack situation. Biggest worry is basically that the villain has some small to medium pocket pair. Jack 8, hopefully he doesn't win. That's once again something totally absurd. Absolutely absurd, let's put that way. Jack 8 off, shoving 20 big blind or something. Against 3 big blind we can definitely fold the crappy king X. This guy folds. What the hell? Let's go for the late C, but I would play a lot of king X hands this way. Sometimes maybe some weak AX. And again he 3x's, we have like 330 big blind, bit less, so pretty standard 3-bet shoving spot. Makes it especially good when he 3x open raises, but of course even against the min raise it would be totally fine. Let's make it 700 if he calls. We can then shove the pot size. And anyway, when we double barreled here, we are kind of saying that, hey, we have the ace, or we don't have it. And against this guy, he seems to be always 3xing. I will shove the suited king. But we can call as well. That's one of the worst outcomes that he actually has. Dominating hand. But I mean definitely plus EV to shout here when he 3x's as normal sizing. It will improve our profitability so much on the shoving spots. But like you can call as well, I think, with the king 6, because when it's suited it has a bit more playability, and queen 7, at least in the Nash, it's going to be call. And I think I will go with the call with the 10 big blind. Spade, no. Well, that heads up took forever. Well, we can have king, we can have flushes. So let's try to bet here for bluff. And it worked. And no luck here. The bottom left way too small sizing for the 3-bet. Anyway, king 10 is very solid hand to call against normal sized. And this guy goes pot bet here. I think I just give up. We don't have any chances to improve in a meaningful way with our hand here. Well, let's find check with the queen x sometimes. And in such situation, if you want to check some, I think having the weakest queen as such hand is probably the most reasonable way. And that was such a quick fold that he probably didn't have anything. Three. Nope. Well, we had one of the threes anyway. King 10 is kind of interesting. I think from what I have seen from this guy, I don't expect to face limp shove. And fortunately that did apply. It's just that when you say something like that, when you are streaming, it's almost guaranteed that it happens. But I mean, the main thing is that if you are against opponent that you can expect to face limp shove type of plays decently frequently, you want to check that sort of king 10 hand, because it's really awkward to face that shove. Because it's kind of a good hand, but it's still something that you don't really want to be stacking off over also. Or at least you can't be happy about the situation. Pretty optimistic play from the villain. One weird hand on the outer table. I mean, this guy's limp, I raise, and now this guy is 3-betting. Pretty small. I suppose with those pot odds I probably need to call. It might be that he has aces that he really slow played by limping behind limper, but and now he's betting 90. I'm just going to call it here and give him the maximum possibility to be doing something stupid and hoping the board doesn't run too bad. I think I shall here. Hopefully he doesn't have the queen. There are a lot of draws and his line just looks weird. Okay, he had the aces. That's like, I don't really remember when I would have faced such a line with the aces, limping behind the limper. Well, seems like it happens. Just kind of unfortunate to hit the top pair on such spots. And just trying to check the showdown with the king high. He should be good pretty often. Well, result-wise we are somewhat on the minus from this session. Not much, but a little bit. I think less than 100 euros at this point. Pocket deuces and he doesn't shove pre-flop. Weird people. I would usually shove that, but this guy has been pretty passive, so at least pre-flop. And on the bottom left, 3 villains limping, so let's just shove that. Do we run into trap again? Well, I suppose you can call that somewhat of a trap, so it should be absolutely clear shove situation again, but whatever. Unfortunately, these people are getting rewarded all the time, and well, I will call here. Let's hope that we are not the bubble boy at least. And we got the monies here. Well, that went a little bit too big, but nice blank river. And he goes down with 10. Well, reasonable play up to river if you do want to call pre-flop, that is. I will go bet just half pot here because his range tends to be quite weak. And I think we still want to value bet. But if he check raises, we have to fold pretty much. Well, this time he actually had 2 pairs, so. But that's quite rare. Quite rare that he has that good of a hand. How about winning flip? Thank you. I think we have too many 25 euros at this point. I'm thinking that do I want to just shove or make some sort of non-all-in 3-bet or small 3-bet. I suppose is better term. Kind of forgot to put the announcement for the stream just a couple of hours before it was, so should have done that earlier. But the next stream will probably be on the Tuesday. We will have some hand history review about MTTs. If I'm not streaming tomorrow, that's possible as well, but probably not. Pocket rockets. And this guy goes for the 3-bet. I think I just call. Well, though the sizing is kind of fizzy looking. Okay, I'm not going to call anymore. Yeah, I think we want to just shove here. It doesn't make too much sense to use smaller sizing. I'm pretty surprised if both of them manages to fold. We might actually get call from both. That was nice setup. Well, I can't call here for set mining, and shoving would be extremely spewby, so. And yeah, I went with the race with the 8 deuce scrap just because of the stack situation. Usually the middle stack will be folding pre-flop quite a lot. Not always, of course. Some people don't really care about stack situation that much, but most of the time it will increase the fold equity. So we hit the crappy top pair. So we also have the queen of clubs, so which doesn't help at this point anymore, but we definitely want to call against this sizing. He actually decreases his absolute sizing from the flop. Yeah. Well, he gave us pretty easy decisions with those sizings. Well, let's go for 3-bet fold here. So if the big blind happens to shove, I think we have to call because of the pot odds against him. I mean, it's quite awkward situation unless he has a really strong hand here. And I think I will just go for 1/3 bet. If he shoves, we can still fold here. Min bet. Well, this is definitely a really standard check back situation, but he actually donk bet, so then we are just going to call and hope that he finds something to stack off. Ace is actually a really crappy card. Now let's hope that he doesn't have Jack 10 or something. That would be quite funny. But we got maximum out of him probably. And of course he hits the king. And definitely want to bet here. If I check, he's quite often checking back, and I can't really go for check raise, I suppose. So he might sometimes still have the plus also. And yeah, pretty standard shove here with the ace-8. Button open raising, he can have a lot of stuff, and usually the small blind calling doesn't have that much strong stuff. And we were ahead once again, but just can't hold. Just can't hold. And let's shove any two pretty much, or play any two anyway. I don't actually mind to double barrel sometimes on the bottom left. Bottom left here, and let's try to value bet the river. He shouldn't have that many queen X at least, so... Well, he probably had the jack 10. I could have checked on the turn as well, but there is decent amount of turns we can 10 double barrel if he calls. And I suppose we can bluff here. King high is, well, we have some showdown value, but let's turn it into bluff. This hand is actually pretty break even in the Nash, so it's again a situation that I don't mind to just limp as default, because shoving is going to be quite marginal option. $120, well, I think he has better pair really often. Yeah, just give up here. You can think about raising as a bluff, but well, let's just shove. It's going to be plus EV. Yeah, it's something like 18 big blind on the Nash range. So we can definitely shove like 10 to 11 big blind. And that's one more win. Well, I managed to isolate different person that I was aiming for, but anyway, we actually flop monster draw here. So yeah, I'm not folding, but obviously this deep it's not going to be awesome situation by any means. Oh, well, that's unexpected. He goes for absolutely huge raise and fold. That's nice. But I mean, basically, unless he has set, we are going to be in at least close to break even flip situation, I mean, here. So but yeah, if you want to check raise as bluff, you can probably a little bit smaller sizing. Well, I think I just check here and let's take the free river. But not hitting anything. Well, we had the same hand. Well, let's go again for this slow play, really try flop overall. But unfortunately he's not betting, so we need to bet ourselves at this point. The question is if he has like Jack X, is he going to call any sizing? Checking doesn't make too much sense because he's not going to. He has some showdown value most of the time, but let's try to go for the maximum. No luck. Maybe it's a bit greedy. I mean, if he has like Jack, Queen Jack or something, he might quite easily call it. And not again. We actually have combo draw here. So we can check back, but I think I prefer to just bet and bet with the sizing that we are going to be committed to call. Well, let's go for this shove right away. It probably doesn't matter that much. Well, he really didn't want to fold, it seems, when he calls with pocket. That's like the last hand you should be calling, pretty much, I would say. So yeah, that wasn't too effective bluff, it seems. I mean, he even had 9 of hearts, I think. So he's basically blocking my semi-bluffs kind of maximally. It's way less likely that I have 9-6 or 9-10, and he's also blocking the flush draw. So, and obviously I'm not going to shove like 8x here. So yeah, that was wrong guy to try to bluff. If he calls that, he should be calling, but it might be that he's actually more happy to call that one compared to like King 8 without heart, even though King 8 would be way better hands to call. Because the thing is that most people want thing in a reasonable way with those, or I suppose it might be even that most people won't really even think about blocker stuff and such. So it's much more common that they just think about the absolute value of their hands and play accordingly. Though that should have been fold, obviously, but even from that way of thinking, I suppose. At least if he sometimes check the turn with the ace or something. Something like that. And again we have the flush draw. Yeah, I'm not going to go for big bluff here against this guy, but definitely going to bet at least once. So now we have the combo draw once again. Yeah, I think I still go for the bet. Oh well, I was planning to check shove here on the bottom left, but now that he shoves, I actually have to fold that one. And he doesn't fold, so yeah. I mean, even if he doesn't fold much at all, my draw is going to be so strong here, and in the case that I hit it, it's kind of nice that I have built the pot bigger. So I don't really mind it either way. The outer table, I flop went check, I bet the turn and bet small here. The idea that I get more calls from 2-pair type of hands. And I might induce some sort of bluff sometimes, which I did this time. And lost the flip on the outer table. River King screwed it up. Bottom 2-pair, that's actually kind of interesting. I was thinking about leading here, but yeah, I will just raise against that absurd min bet. But it's 4-way pot, so I don't think these guys will be stepping that wide. And I have to call the sevens. Oh well. Of course not the like spot here that you are happy to call, but the point is that my range is going to be so wide that I shouldn't be folding sevens most of the time. So yeah, with these couple lost on the tables, we are going to be quite break even again on this session. I suppose this table for some reason didn't reset the view here. Nine queen. That was one loose shove. Well, it would have worked against me anyway, but... Well, let's close that one. I'm not sure about is it working or not. I think this is kind of close, but it's 4-way pot and 2 people are interested about the pot, so I think I just give up. And that's one more marvelous flop. We can check raise, of course, but I don't think it makes too much sense in this situation, especially as we are chip leader versus second chip. So if I check raise here, how many weaker hands are going to stack off? So I just prefer to call and keep his range as wide as possible. Now we actually hit 2 pairs and here are busted flush draw, so he can definitely hero call with some stuff. But I think he folded, and this guy is once again min betting. Mr. Min Bet. Oh well. Diamond set. Just going to fold that ace jack. Well, that was one of the saving cards. So still trying to hold on for the dear life. Ooh, that was awesome. And there is some point in just flatting here as well, because that's one of the issues, that when you actually get called, at least against decent player, how many weaker hands will he have? So because of that you can argue about just calling, but of course there is also the thing that how often the villain is actually good enough that he's not going to raise call with like some ace 10 or stuff like that. And at the same time, of course, every time you get the pot down pre-flop without the need of the flop, there is some decent profit in that in itself. So But anyway, nice suck out on some spots. I think I will shove here. Ace deuce will have such a poor playability that it tends to play better that way to create the fold equity. And once again we suck out. Really hot run mode on. This is really close in the Nash. It's up to 3.3 big blinds, but this is one absurd looking 3-bet, but obviously with the queens, not going to think about it. And he actually had just tiny bit weaker hand, but again the question is, does his sizing make any sense? How many weaker hands am I going to shove it here? Maybe some like pocket tens, ace, king. Probably that's it pretty much. That's it pretty much, I would say. Bottom right, if he bets, I will raise. We can have some cut shot type of hands, open-ended straight draw, and such that we could be raising against the c-bet also in reasonable fashion. But unfortunately no action. Pocket sixes, I think it's going to be a bit too weak with the ICM side. I would go with bit better pocket, but I think that is a bit too weak. Not much, but a little bit. The question is, should we try to bluff the river? I think I will go for the bluff, because I think we get queen high, king high really often to fold, maybe even a high sometimes. Not pocket deuces though. We have tiny bit of showdown value, so I don't think checking would be absurd either, but king 8 on the top left, if it's folded to small blind, I would call against his shove, but in this area obviously not going to call. Well, button calling would have been wet dream, so to say. Doesn't matter who would have won, pretty much would have improved my situation by big leap. And not going to open 5-7 with that stack. And do we get action? Nope. This Iker C1 is actually one of those guys that usually don't change their nick, and he's usually quite hezzy. I think quite tight. I think I go for 3-bet here. We have quite a lot of playability with hand and can put a lot of pressure for the middle stack. And he folds. King queen, I will 3-bet out here. Please lose. Jesus, what go? Ace 3. Ace 3. I was thinking about open folding that as well, because I can't really stack off against either of the villains. It's kind of funny in a way that like king queen, king jack, maybe queen jack suitors, they are going to be pretty much the bottom of my shoving range in that situation when I had the king queen. So main portion of the time ace-3 will be totally dominated, sometimes tiny bit ahead. So I think that should tell quite a lot about profitability of his call. Suppose we can raise here with the strong top pair. So if he happens to 3-bet, I probably have to fold at that point. Okay, well, as we have the flush draw as well, we can't be folding really. It's pretty weird looking line though, because 3 shouldn't change that much the situation. I suppose I have to fold here. This line is pretty strong looking anyway, even if it's pretty bit weird one. And trying to re-steal on the top left. But yeah, we probably don't want to be shoving too much against this Captain Rose guy. When he made that call, it pretty much implied that he's not going to be folding too much at least against the 3-bet shoves. Yeah, if they 3-bet, yeah, this seems like maybe he just wakes up with big hands, but we probably want to tighten a lot on our min raising range. Seems like he's not. Might be very aggro. Well, I think against this 4PP open we can just fold that suited ace. I mean, against 3x I would have called, but I think 4x start to be pretty bit nasty overall. Would have been nice hand to shove, open shove. Well, ace-4 will be shoving, and when the big blind is smaller than the small stack, I don't usually use those non all-in sizings that much. And unfortunately, 9 jack is not quite enough, I would say. It's annoying because this guy is raising like all the time, so I can't get the open shoving spots. I would have shoved that one, although it would have been like absolute weakest hand on my range. So luckily I didn't get the chance here. So now we are in a pretty good looking situation. On the upper right I went for sort of thin value / equity denial bet here. And we actually have open-ended straight draw here. I'm trying to team play. Well, he does give me price unless I happen to be dead, which I might be. Let's hope that's not the case. C6, it's pretty weird looking spot. I mean, I doubt he has the 8x either, but obviously I have to shove it here for value with the straight. Checking would be really tight. And we lost that one. Standard shove, obviously. Oh, we actually got the new game right away. Seems like no 50 euro action today. I think there has been like 2 or 3 players at best, and now I'm actually the only one tier registered. On the bottom right, I would raise pretty narrow ranged here and not have many trashy hands, because when that is the I'm clear second stack against chip leader. So, but if he checks again, definitely going for semi bluff, and I think we need to call here. Even raising would be somewhat fine, I think. I think I just call. Because then we would have a lot more showdown value with the 8 and 6x's, but yeah, I think it's really tough for me to get anything to fold unless he has like some totally weird Jack 10 or something. I just call it here. I don't really want to. It's kind of questionable to raise, I suppose. At least against that player, because I think he's usually going to be a bit stronger on the range in those spots. But once he checks twice, I think I have the best hand almost always. So let's go for small value bet. On the bottom right, it's actually kind of weird spot to be donk betting for the big blind, because obviously I have quite a big of range advantage here. I don't know, I'm quite close on whatever to call that 3-bet or not, because it was quite sizable as well. Oh well, hard to see any bluffs obviously, and you can definitely have King X, some 10x, so even with those potters, maybe folding is the best option. Of course, there is some chance that we would get split pot by calling, but I think it's extremely rarely that we are winning the pot. And now obviously going for 3-bet. Oh, I actually went 650. I was trying to make it 600, but well, it's fine either way. Fine either way. And it's basically a really dry flop. Villain shouldn't be hitting that one without making really stupid call. Like maybe some 7-8 shooters would make somewhat sensible hand, but or like ace-8 shooter. That huge 3-bet shove here against my queen. Yeah, well, if you have option of folding or shoving is probably better one, but not really a line you want to take once again. If you get called, are you how often on ahead? That's the question. Yeah, you can be flipping against ace king, but that is going to be pretty much it against decent opponent at least. Yeah, I'm going to float here with the gut shot. It's really dry flop, so I think we should get decent amount of respect for the call here. But he continues, though we have a double gut shot actually now. Thinking about shoving, it would look really strong. And I think I will actually try to check raise. If he has the queen, there's a decent chance that he's going to value bet it. But it seems like he checked back with something. Let's see. What? Wow. King 9 and he doesn't bet river. Oh well. Well, this is again really weird looking line, but I don't know. Hard to see that I would be ahead, and I think this is some regular. At least that name is somewhat familiar, so might be someone that doesn't change their nick. I was basically betting for thin values, was pre-showdown on the turn with my 6 east here. But this time it didn't work quite as wanted. Basically on the upper right we can go either way because it's kind of nice if we get like Jack 10, King 10 or that sort of hands to fold. Well, that's actually quite a disaster on the other hand. But I don't expect that to really happen that often, especially as that guy tends to be on more passive side. And yeah, I can't be folding King Jack here, especially when I don't block the spade either. Yeah. It's a pretty weird looking line that he min bets the flop. Or 8. Well played. Well played. Yeah, I think Queen 7 I probably have to call here against 5. Bit over 5 big blind. And he's probably steaming as well against after that interesting line. Or before that line, I don't know. Let's try to limp with the queen deuce. It's not going to be. I think in the Nash it's not even going to be. It's up to 7 big blind in the Nash ranges. So. he had 60 here, so definitely not folding against single bet at any point. I decided to check on the upper left because I have some showdown value with the king high, and basically there is so little sensible turn cards that I could double barrel pretty much. So like in here we can turn gutshot, we can turn flush draw. Pocket force is kind of hand that it's not bad to just open fold either, but I think I perhaps prefer to still open raise, but this is the problem. I was just thinking that on average they're probably going to be passive enough to make that play, but I can't really raise call with the ICM side. In the MTT I think calling would be reasonable, but a 9-10 shooter I will 3-bet shove here against that open, and we are drawing dead at the turn. But yeah, pretty standard. Standard shove against active player at least. Well, luckily ace is not out for the middle lane. We're probably losing with the ace-5, but it doesn't make any sense to be bluffing with that one. We actually have gutshot here, and it's one dry flop. I suppose we could try to bluff. I don't know, we can't really have much else than hand like that for semi-bluffing on that board. So yeah, as always, feel free to use the chat if you have any questions, comments, whatever. And we flop the nuts here. Let's hope that small blind has something. I suppose we can just call here. Shoving makes some sense in a way that I don't expect too much of raise folding range necessarily, but at the same time most of the turns are going to be something that doesn't scare the middle lane. And I think we can shove here. If he has some sort of AX that he's value betting or better, he's probably going to stack off. But if I just call and turn is like, for example, ace against his king jack, he might be letting it go, or if it's queen or 10, it might get him to fold or check fold. 7-9. I think it's pretty close, but let's just fold. We are so deep against 40 big blinds that I will actually just flat here. And on the bottom left, it kind of feels that we have to value bet, but the question is, what hand will call? And I think this is actually a spot where we can often go for the check, because his line doesn't really make sense for much weaker hand. He shouldn't have pocket pairs. AX shouldn't make any sense to be. So in the case that he's actually slow playing with something like, oh, he actually has the ace. Well, maybe he would have called, who knows. But he shouldn't have the ace, but it doesn't really make any sense. But well, it's quite often with these guys that things don't really make sense. Well, I'm in raised. I think it's pretty tough to get a call from weaker hand. He might sometimes check like 8x or something. Something along those lines. And on the outer table we got nice setup, ace king versus ace queen, and managed to win. Now sitting out here. And won also the flip. Quite nice situation on the bottom left. And a6. As default, I tend to call this one. We are 8 big blind against the button open shove, so he should be somewhat ahead of his range. If you have passive reads, it's definitely should have shoved that one, but it doesn't really matter that much. If I shove here, I think he's never going to call with weaker hand, maybe like base 10 sometimes. So I think I prefer flatting from position a bit more. Folding obviously not possible. When we have the heart, I think we have to call against this third pot bet. So we are going to fold really often if he shoves turn or something like that. Without heart, I would have just folded on the flop right away. Yeah, usually I'm pretty happy to go with 4-bet shove on the heads up with the ace-jack type of hand, but I think when we are like 40 big blind deep, it starts to be a bit on the questionable area, at least against reasonable looking opponent. Well, if he still keeps 3-betting me, I suppose I have to alter my pre-flop strategy. I think I check back here. We have some showdown value, and we really have very few turn cards to be barreling here. So just trying to check the showdown, unless we hit the queen pretty much. And king queen suited, I will 3-bet shove here. We have pretty nice stack depth for it. And we lost on the bottom left, I suppose. Oh, should have bet a bit bigger. Well, at least his range is wide now when I just min bet. And seems I lost against something. something here. Well, I suppose I got a bit cheaper from that hand when I made that too small c-bet. And king 8 doesn't make too much sense to see, but we have some showdown value and possibility to turn a lot of equity. 6-9. If we hit second pair, it's probably enough also. And our induce worked greatly, and in here we actually have combo draw. Let's go for check raise. Nice thing about those situations is that if the villain folds, great. If he calls, great. Everything is kind of okay. Even if he 3-bets, it's not a disaster to stack off. We have so much equity. I think I call with the gut shot here. We are really deep for the big blind. I think I shouldn't really be 3-bet shoving that deep. Well, calling and flopping the set is really nice alternative. And now we are get to check raise with monster value hand. Well, that was kind of unfortunate turn, but I'm still going to be betting here for value and stacking off if needed. And now we have practical nuts. So obviously going to shove it here. Interesting that what did he have, because would he fold trips here? I think I go for check, because that way on the bottom left we can have some very easy hands to just check call. And this is 10 big blind deep, so I'm not folding that one. And flush completing is not the greatest thing on the bottom right, but we still have to value bet with the straight here. But yeah, he wasn't believing that too much when he called with 5x without blocking the flush either, so pretty loose hero call, I would say. Well, king 6 is always going to be plus EV, so we don't have to worry about poor postal playability. Kind of unfortunate having ace 10 king queen on the big blind, and he's just folding both times. Just checking back here, we have some showdown, and he has range advantage here after seeing 3 flop. suppose he is very carded on the button. Well, queen 10, queen 7, we can go either way, I think. But if I limp, I'm planning to limp fold at that point. Seven suited having pretty nice post-up playability, so pretty nice limp calling hand, but board just shock, and I'm not going to rep some 5x here. I think it's quite hard for us to rep much here, so just check. We can limp the 9s, but it's 7 big blind deep, so I think I just prefer shoving in general. Oh, that was nice river. That was nice river. Got one more running. Let's take 10 euro. 10 euro game as well. This guy is 3xing. I suppose we can go for 3-bet shove as well. I don't know. Both of the options have their sides. By calling, we keep his range wider. And we have combo draw here. It's pretty draw heavy too, so I go for a bit bigger sizing. And both of them call, so I think I just prefer checking and seeing if we get free river and crappy river. Check folding is only, I think, only reasonable option here. We can't value bet, and check calling would be pretty questionable. At least if the sizing is not like really small or something. It's just in the bottom right that if we parallel the turn and face the check shove, it's going to be quite a disaster. Limp, so let's raise from position. And flop quad. Well, this is one of those situations that we can go for check and hope that he... Well, I think either way is fine, but I mean, if he has pocket pair, he's probably going to continue against small c-bet either way. So again, if he has queen x, I think he's going to quite often call if I shove here. And if he has busted draw, he's not going to give any action most of the time, even if I make small bets. Well, a7. saying that against small blind we can call chip leader making 3x open, so I think I prefer. I doubt that I have enough fold equity here. And 7-9 is not. You can try to limp, but I think in this stack scenario it's quite likely that he's not giving me that often free flop. And I think we are so close to the stack depth of the PP that shoving is probably the best option, but unfortunately chip leader waking up. I'm not completely sure, like if the big blind is bit shallower stack, then we can definitely go for open fold tier. Not the greatest looking spot when big blind check raises that flop, because he can definitely have decent amount of hands that does beat me, but I mean once he sizes the check raise so big, it's kind of questionable do we want to just call, because we are kind of committed to pot on a lot of runouts anyway. But yeah, if he makes middle pair check raise calls like that, then definitely plus EV to stack off. Basically it's enough that he has decent amount of top pairs to do that play. King 10 I will just complete if there is no raise. And we actually have 2 pairs, and this is pretty big sizing, so I mean if he had made it smaller I could think about making like 3-bet with the blockers, but against 5 big blind it's not really option. Do we win? And king high is enough. I think I just shove here to 14 big blind. I should have actually completed that one. Queen 6. Well, at least we have value in these games. Standard stuff. Limp call, 14 big blind, effective. Well, I suppose we want to just shove this as value. Who knows what he goes with. But yeah, I think I played these 5 games to end and quit the session. We are currently, if counting the buy-ins from the games, €110. We are around 200 up at this point. So let's hope some profit from these as well, or at least getting back the buy-in values. I think king 10 we probably need to call, because 2 overs, decent flush draw. It's probably a bit too much to fold. And we need to call here again. If he fires 3rd time I will give up. But he can have some bigger flushes as well. Kind of weird bet in my opinion, King 7, he still had top pair, so is there any sense to turn that into bluff? Or was he value betting? Who knows? No idea, probably bluffing I suppose. Yeah, you don't really want to, like, in those situations if you have top pair, you usually want to just try to check the showdown. Because you have some showdown value. And if you have something like maybe gut shot to straight draw without any showdown value, you can use something like that, or some total airball in those four card flush boards that doesn't have showdown value, so you can't really win by checking. Make much more sense to be bluffing with, because if you bluff like all top pairs and second pairs and whatever, then I doubt that I really have fold equity on this board, so I was thinking about making like block bet like 90 or something to prevent this situation, because I can't really call this plus EV. At the same time, if you check, you can also get the free soda, free river sometimes. Of course, if I bet small, there is small possibility that we actually get the pot down. I suppose we could also sometimes with those go for big turn and decent river bets and try to get some weaker made hands to fold. That would be fine as well. Because if you have those smaller flush blockers, they are not that relevant. Pot betting, I think I just give up against that. Look pretty strong when he makes it against two people. So I suppose you can also argue that it's too strong hand, but I mean we can have, like, for example, Queen X with the heart draw or something like that. Of course it's relatively rare, but anyway. In the outer table we have flopped the nuts pretty much. We get action. Kind of scary boards that he can have some bigger full houses as well, but I mean I'm still pretty happy to stack off here. He might be playing like some Queen X as bet call easily as well, so I guess this also small bet I will actually value raise here with the bottom two pair. What the fuck? Oh Jesus. Well, that's one way to do it. That's one way to do it, I suppose. Two pair was enough for this guy to stack off. No idea what goes through that guy's mind. Probably he doesn't know it himself either. So. Well, we are 20 big blind deep here on the top left. So I think I just go for 3-bet shove. And 6s, we can just lay down right away. I called because his sizing was extremely small, like 2x or tiny bit over out of position, so can't really fold much against sizing like that. Kind of interesting board run. Wow, I was still really thinking about check calling the river, and he doesn't value it. Full house. I mean, it counterfeited if he had 4x and there was also a busted flush draw, so I think it would have been kind of reasonable hero calling spot. Though probably quite questionable anyway. Let's go for limp shove if he raises my limp. We are a bit deep, of course, but I think it's kind of best play to go for. Well, we are flipping and won, luckily. That's the good side of these pocket pairs, even small ones, that even if the call comes, you can actually be somewhat ahead of portion of his range anyway. And he checks, so I will value bet the jack here. Mercedes Benz, not Benz, almost. Pocket aces for nice situation. Let's see if we get any action. And seems like we do. Ouch! One outer on the turn after that flop. Wow. I have got quite a few of those, like last couple sessions, that I managed to lose with the bigger pocket pair. Not too many times. I'm not even sure if I have got single time even in this session, at least not in the previous sessions. So quite unlucky. I have been quite unlucky with those spots. Wow, this is one of those extremely weird lines once again. Then he mean bets. I was planning to fold against sizable bets on the turn. Wow. Well. Weird. Pot, min bet pot. This seems like one of those guys that when you actually hit something, you can get a lot of value, unless he happens to have something big. Well, flush draw completed, so I will try to bluff here with the tiny bit of blockers. These are really awkward spots. I mean, the hand improves really rarely and there are a lot of bad turn river cards, so I just give up right away after we have seen that Unibet bot line as well. Because the thing is that if we call those sort of situations often and then we end up folding in a lot of runouts, then it just gets. Well, we have double gutshot here, pair as well. Well, let's hope that he would just shut down at this point. Well, I can't really call anymore, unless I think that he's just barreling with all sorts of stuff. Yeah, basically against this sort of guy you want to be folding more of the marginal stuff right away from the flop, and then you can get to showdown a bit more frequently, as you don't need to be folding quite as much. But let's try to be the pre-flop aggressor, so maybe we get pot down this way more easily. Now, this is kind of crappy hand to be betting, but well, let's bet against this guy. He seems to be folding quite a lot to see bets, at least so far. If I check, he probably goes for pot bet on the turn, and I have to fold unless I hit king. Well, this time he seems to have something. Pot flop is as dry as it can be. It's kind of annoying opponent if you don't hit anything else than bottom pair or something like that. Well, no, he didn't bet. I was thinking about betting the river for value also. Well, didn't turn anything to barrel. 160. Suppose we could be ahead of something, but and bottom pair. I had heart, I would have called it here. But once again, if I call it here, pot is going to be pretty sizable and it's going to be quite nasty to call down anyway. And I think ace-8 suited is like barely good enough. Offsuit I would have folded it here. Well, he didn't bump now. Well, let's bet ourselves then. So seems like he's not going to pot with everything at least. I think I just shove here. Well, we could also flat in a way that it has nice post-up playability. Let's go for the flat. Kind of course, dangerous board in a way, but I still prefer just calling. So at least we got something from these two games. Well, this hand won't really play that well post flop. Oh well, do I want to call with this sort of the first time when he makes that sort of big shove, and he has been quite passive as well overall, like limping quite a lot and so on. Well, now he's shoving again. Or maybe he's just changing his style. Well, I think it's third time that he shoves in a row, so seems like he's not doing it with just premium stuff. Almost, that would have been pretty ugly. At least so far he haven't been 3-betting my open races, and he checks here. I think I go for bluff here. Seems quite weak, at least. Min betting flop and checking turn, so you probably have good amount of fold equity. I was thinking about making right raised here, but so usually I would limp this hand, but again this guy haven't been raising 3-betting so far. And for example, this sort of situation, I don't think like this hand has enough showdown value that we can try to check to showdown. Would he be bluffing enough? He's probably value betting 6x if I call. Well, I don't know. We have flushes as well in our range, so. I think we can. I mean, the point is that usually I would call here, but the thing is that he's potting so often that I think we can just go for check raise for value here. Stack off. It's also kind of boards that can develop in very nasty ways. Let's try how he reacts to limping shoves right away. That's kind of interesting thing that he hasn't been 3-bet shoving against me, so might be that if I get strong hand, it might be better to limp actually. I think I go for limp call this one. Let's see if he shows. Do you have better? Unfortunately, yes. Well, it's pretty standard overall. Bit over 10 big blind deep, so don't fold. Well, it's kind of interesting spot against this guy. That would it be better to call or so? But there is a lot of straight draws as well and such, so just go for the shove. And yeah, I was checking pre-flop because I was thinking that he would be folding quite often if I shove. Obviously now was not the case. And let's try to get free river if possible. Kind of interesting spot, I would say. Would he bet like 9x here? He might. Diamond King. Oh well. Two sort of setup situations when he has doubled up. Well, of course that ace jack versus aces was set up from my direction, but total crap. And like if I check and he pots, it's going to be kind of awkward spot. Kind of nice card. Now the question is that does it make more sense to min raise, or well, even shoving would be actually quite think I go for shove. It's going to be plus EV anyway. Unfortunately, he wakes up with ace king and, well, almost. I mean, in the NAS it's up to 13.3 big blind. I would usually limp, but this guy seems to be more aggressive against limping than min raising, so I don't know. Weird will lane. So yeah, that was the session. We made decent profit, 160 euros. So winning that last one would have been nice extra, so to say, but better than nothing. So yeah, probably next Tuesday will be the next streaming about the MTT hand history review. So until 10, most likely. Bye for now.